Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I do these readings twice a week from various classics. If you subscribe to my free Substack newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of the next episode and can leave your comments and suggestions. And you can also check out there my flash fiction writings or musings on the world. I will be reading to you from Very Good Jeeves. It's a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1930. In them, Jeeves, a very competent valet, and his hapless employer Bertie Wooster were characters in dozens of short stories by Wodehouse. The stories are from the point of view of Bertie. This is the penultimate story in this collection, so if you have any suggestions for the next Olden Days book, let me know. Last episode, with Jeeves's help, Bertie devised a plan to discourage his Uncle George from marrying a much younger woman. They would scare him off with her aunt, a large, loud, and very much outgoing person. Bertie's Aunt Agatha didn't like the plan, but they're going ahead anyway, in secret. A surprising luncheon. I suppose doing good by stealth ought to give one a glow, but I can't say I found myself exactly looking forward to the binge in prospect. Uncle George by himself is a mouldy enough luncheon companion, being extremely apt to collar the conversation and confine it to a description of his symptoms, he being one of those birds who can never be brought to believe that the general public isn't agog to hear about the lining of his stomach. Add the aunt, and you have a little gathering which might well dismay the stoutest. The moment I woke, I felt conscious of some impending doom, and the cloud, if you know what I mean, grew darker all the morning. By the time Jeeves came in with the cocktails, I was feeling pretty low. "For 2 pins, Jeeves," I said, "I would turn the whole thing up and leg it to the drones." "I can readily imagine that this will prove something of an ordeal, sir." "How did you get to know these people, Jeeves?" "It was through a young fellow of my acquaintance, sir, Colonel Mainwaring Smith's personal gentleman's gentleman. He and the young person had an understanding at the time, and he desired me to accompany him to Wisteria Lodge and meet her." "Oh, they were engaged?" "Not precisely engaged, sir. An understanding." "Well, what did they quarrel about?" "They did not quarrel, sir. When his lordship began to pay his addresses, the young person, naturally flattered, began to waver between love and ambition. But even now she has not formally rescinded the understanding." Then if your scheme works and Uncle George edges out, it will do your pal a bit of good?" "Yes, sir. Smethurst, his name is Smethurst, would consider it a consummation devoutly to be wished." An unseen hand without tootled on the bell, and I braced myself to play the host. The binge was on. "Mrs. Wilberforce, sir," announced Jeeves. She breezed in. "And how am I to keep a straight face with you standing behind my chair and saying, 'Madame, can I tempt you with a potato?' Is more than I know," said the aunt, sailing in looking pinker and larger and matier than ever. "I know him, you know," she said, jerking her thumb at Jeeves. "He's been round and taken tea with us." "So he told me." She gave the sitting room the once-over. "You've got a nice place here," she said, "though I'd like more pink about. It's so cheerful. Oh, what's that you've got there? Cocktails?" "A martini with a spot of absinthe," I said, beginning to pour. She gave a girlish squeal. "Don't you try to make me drink that stuff. Do you know what would happen if I touched one of those things? I'd be racked with pain. What they do to the lining of your stomach." "Oh, I don't know." "I do. If you'd been a barmaid as long as I was, you'd know too." "Oh, were you a barmaid?" "For years, when I was younger than I am. At the Criterion." I dropped the shaker. "There," she said, pointing to the moral. "That's through drinking that stuff. Makes your hand wobble. What I always used to say to the boys was, 'Port if you like. Port's wholesome. I appreciate a drop of port myself. But these newfangled messes from America, no, they would never listen to me." I was eyeing her warily. Of course, there must have been thousands of barmaids at the Criterion in his time, but still it gave one a bit of a start. It was years ago that Uncle George's dash at a mésalliance had occurred, long before he came into the title, but the Wooster clan still quivered at the name of the Criterion. When you were at the Cry, I said, did you ever happen to run into a fellow of my name? Oh, I've forgotten what it is. I'm always silly about names. Wooster. Wooster? When you were there yesterday, I thought you said Foster. Wooster? Did I run to a fellow named Wooster? Well, why, George Wooster and me, Piggy I used to call him, were going off to the registrar's, only his family heard of it and interfered. They offered me a lot of money to give him up, and like a silly girl, I let them persuade me. If I've wondered once what became of him, I've wondered 1,000 times. Is he a relation of yours? Excuse me, I said. I just want a word with Jeeves, and I liked it for the pantry. Jeeves? Sir? Do you know what's happened? No, sir. Well, this female? Sir? She's Uncle George's barmaid. Sir? Oh, dash it. You must have heard of Uncle George's barmaid. You know all the family history. The barmaid he wanted to marry years ago. Yes, sir. She's the only woman he ever loved. He's told me so 1,000,000 times. Every time he gets to the second liqueur, he always becomes maudlin about this female. What a dashed bit of bad luck. The first thing we know, the call of the past will be echoing in his heart. I can feel it, Jeeves. She's just his sort. The first thing she did when she came in was to start talking about the lining of her stomach. You see the hideous significance of that, Jeeves? The lining of his stomach is Uncle George's favorite topic of conversation. It means that he and she are kindred souls. This woman and he will be like deep calling to deep, sir. Exactly. Most disturbing, sir. What's to be done? I couldn't not say, sir. I tell you what I'm going to do. Phone him and say the lunch is off. Scarcely feasible, sir. I fancy that is his lordship at the door now. And so it was. Jeeves let him in, and I followed him as he navigated down the passage to the sitting-room. There was a stunned silence as he went in, and then a couple of startled yelps you hear when old buddies get together after a long separation. Piggy, Maudie. Well, I'm dashed. Did you ever? Well, bless my soul. Fancy you being Lord Yaxley. Came into the title soon after we parted. Just to think, you could have knocked me down with the feather. Hung about in the offing, now on this leg, now on that, and for all the notice they took of me, I might have just as well have been the late Bertram Wooster, disembodied. Maudie, you don't look a day older, dash it, he said. Nor you, Piggy. How have you been all these years? Oh, pretty well. The lining of my stomach isn't all it should be. Good gad, you don't say so? I have trouble with the lining of my stomach. It's sort of a heavy feeling after meals. I get a sort of heavy feeling after meals, too. What are you trying for it? I've been taking Perkins' Digestine. My dear girl, no use. No use at all. Tried it myself for years and got no relief. Now, if you really want something that is some good, I slid away. The last I saw of them, Uncle George was down beside her on the Chesterfield, buzzing hard. Jeeves, I said, tottering into the pantry. Sir, there will only be 2 for lunch. Count me out. If they notice I'm not there, tell them I was called away by an urgent phone message. The situation has got beyond Bertram, Jeeves. You will find me at the drones. Very good, sir. It was latish in the afternoon when one of the waiters came to me as I played a distrait game of snooker at pool and informed me that Aunt Agatha was on the phone. Bertie. Hello. I was amazed to note that her voice was that of an aunt who feels that things are breaking right. It had the bird-like trill. Bertie, have you that check I gave you? Yes. Oh, then tear it up. It will not be needed. Eh? I say it will not be needed. Your uncle's been speaking to me on the telephone. He is not going to marry that girl. Not? No. Apparently he's been thinking it over, and sees how unsuitable it would have been. But what is astonishing is that he is going to be married. He is? Yes, to an old friend of his, a Mrs. Wilberforce, a woman of sensible age, he gave me to understand. I wonder which Wilberforces that would be. There are two main branches of the family, the Essex Wilberforces and the Cumberland Wilberforces, and I believe there's also a branch somewhere in Shropshire. And one in East Dulwich, I said. What did you say? Oh, nothing, I said. Nothing. I hung up, then back to the old flat, feeling a trifle sandbagged. Well, Jeeves, I said, and there was censure in the eyes, so I gather everything is nicely settled? Yes, sir. His lordship formally announced the engagement between the sweets and the cheese courses, sir. He did he? Yes, sir. I eyed the man sternly. You do not appear to be aware of it, Jeeves, I said in a cold, level voice, but this binge has depreciated your stock very considerably. I have always been accustomed to look upon you as a counselor without equal. I have, so to speak, hung upon your lips, and now see what you have done. All this is the direct consequence of your scheme based on the psychology of the individual. I should have thought, Jeeves, that knowing the woman, meeting her socially, as you might say, over the afternoon cup of tea, you might have ascertained that she was Uncle George's barmaid. I did, sir. What? I was aware of the fact, sir. Then you must have known what would happen if she came to lunch and met him. Yes, sir. I'm dashed. If I might explain, sir, the young man Smethurst, who is greatly attached to the young person, is an intimate friend of mine. He applied to me some little while back in the hope that I might be able to do something to ensure that the young person, following the dictates of her heart, and refrained from permitting herself to be lured by gold and the glamour of his lordship's position. There will now be no obstacle to their union. I see. Little acts of unremembered kindness, what? Precisely, sir. And what about Uncle George? You've landed him pretty nicely in the cart. No, sir, if I may take the liberty of opposing your view, I fancy that Mrs. Wilberforce should make an ideal mate for his lordship. If there was a defect in his lordship's mode of life, it was that he was a little unduly attached to the pleasures of the table. Ate like a pig, you mean? I would not have ventured to put it quite that way, sir, but the expression does meet the facts of the case. He was also inclined to drink rather more than his medical adviser would have approved of. Elderly bachelors who are wealthy and without occupation tend somewhat frequently to fall into this error, sir. The future Lady Yaxley will check this. Indeed, I overheard her ladyship saying as much as I brought in the fish. She was commenting on a certain puffiness of the face, which had been absent in his lordship's appearance in the earlier days of their acquaintance, and she observed that his lordship needed looking after. I fancy, sir, that you will find the union will turn out an extremely satisfactory one. It was, what's the word I want? It was plausible, of course, but still I shook the onion. But Jeeves, sir, she is, as you remarked long ago, definitely the people. He looked at me in a reproachful sort of way. A sturdy lower middle class stock, sir. Sir, I said, Jeeves. Besides, sir, remember what the poet Tennyson said, kind hearts are more than coronets. And which of us is going to tell Aunt Agatha that? If I might make the suggestion, sir, I would advise that we omit to communicate with Mrs. Spencer Gregson in any way. I have your suitcase practically packed. It would be a matter of but a few minutes to bring round the car from the garage. And over the horizon to where men are men? Precisely, sir. Jeeves, I said, I'm not sure that even now I can altogether see eye to eye with you regarding your recent activities. You think you have scattered light and sweetness on every side. I'm not sure. However, with this latest suggestion, you have rung the bell. I examine it narrowly and find no flaw in it. It is the goods. I'll get the car at once. Very good, sir. Remember what the poet Shakespeare said, Jeeves? What was that, sir? Exit hurriedly, pursued by a bear. You'll find it in one of his plays. I remember drawing a picture of it on the side of the page while I was at school. End of chapter. A satisfactory conclusion, as long as Aunt Agatha doesn't meet the new Lady Yaxley, I suppose. Just a reminder, if you subscribe to my free newsletter at ravensview.substack.com, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. Plus, you can browse the very short stories and musings I have in there. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, do leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack, and remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.